So just to give you a scale of the idea, right? I mean, scale of the
Yeah.
prompt statement. Right? So we were getting like almost 1,000+ alerts every week, right? That's what, more than 100 a day, right? Oh, it's okay if production is down also at 3 in the night. No one will they will switch off their phone, sleep, and then wake up at 6 o'clock and then fix it, right? So even
Yeah.
that was hampering the uptime numbers, uptime metrics, and whatnot, right? Those alerts were not even combined automatically, right? You had to actually run a regex and then combine them, right? So there was a lot of manual work which was going into it, right? I actually believe everyone is a 10x engineer, right? But I feel that it's basically helping them find it out, right? Giving them the right direction, right? And empowering them in making sure that they are able to take decision. That's not how it's supposed to be, right? So it's services plus a set of features in your application, right, is what you own, right? And what happens is, because of that, right, it's your team's mandate, right, to make sure that those systems and that features are up on the production.
Is this concept understood well, especially in Indian context where we are seen to be hard workers, and Indian mentality is that people will gravitate towards working hard, and they almost see it as a virtue that hey, I'm working 12 hours a day and 14 hours a day.
Is having a good peer set, right, is very, very important,
Yeah.
right? Having really smart people around. Never, I mean, this is a very common thing, right? Never be a smartest person in the room, right? Simple as that.
Welcome to the podcast Engineering Unplugged with me, Bhavin. Thank you to 10x Eng for very graciously sponsoring today's episode. Today we have Amit Chhajer, the CTO of Trudoc, a healthcare company based in Dubai. Amit and I talk about interesting aspects of alerting and monitoring in production backend systems and engineering hygiene, amongst other things. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Please subscribe for more such content.
Hey Amit, we are live. Welcome. Amit,
Yep.
do you want to talk about an incident where you were challenged as a leader and it was a challenging situation, and how did you turn it around?
Yeah, no, I think as an engineering leader, right, these are some things which you have to deal on a daily basis, right? I mean, that's always something which is burning somewhere in the company, right? Either in engineering, in non-engineering, everywhere you need tech solutions, right?
Yeah.
That's a very common thing which keeps happening, right? But one of the uh, very interesting one which comes to my mind, right, and it's a little bit engineering focus, and given that we are also talking about a little more on the engineering side of things, right? It's one of the situation that happened at, so I was a director of engineering some years ago, right? And when I joined the company, right, there were a lot of challenges which were hampering both people side of things and engineering side of things, right? So I'll give you an example, right? So what was happening, right? So it was actually a very interesting problem because it's touching both sides, right? So I'll give you an example what was happening, and then I'll come to the problem statement, right? So what was happening is a lot of my engineers in my team, right, were getting calls at like 3 a.m. in the night, 5 a.m. in the night, like same person twice in the day, right? And then you expect them to come to work at 10 o'clock because that's when the stand up is, right? It's just so hard, right? It's just not doable, right? I mean, why would someone do this and stay with the company, right?
Yeah.
So it was happening because of one of the just the problem statement, right? Is we were having like noise in our alerts, right? And by noise, I mean not just alerts which doesn't make sense, right? These were alerts which actually made sense also. Like someone actually had to wake up at 3 o'clock in the night and clean up the queue and then run a cron and then basically go to sleep back, right? So this was happening very frequently, right? And this was one of the things which I thought it's one of the very big problem in the company in terms of making sure the engineers stay with us, right? So took this as a problem statement, right? Just to
Oh
give you a
wow.
scale of,
So
yeah.
just to get you right, it was not as simple as just deleting the alerts which are unrequired.
No, it was just not noise. It was noise plus actually real alerts, which was hampering user experience as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just to give you a scale of the idea, right? I mean, scale of the
Yeah.
problem statement. Right? So we were getting like almost 1,000+ alerts every week, right? That's what, more than 100 a day, right? And this is divided into, see, and what happens, right? I mean, it's always the lead engineers who get like the first alerts, right? So it's like 10 people who are getting these alerts, right? It's not like all the 100 people who are getting these alerts, right? 10, 12, 15 people, right? So those people were like really having a hard time, right? And that's where I thought, I mean, this is a really, really important and burning problem, right? And I prioritize this across the engineering, right? So one of the things so there were multiple things. So it was not very easy, right? Because it's 1,000 alerts, right? So there's very different ways of how you approach these alerts in terms of like solving for them, right? So I think
there is no one pattern
exactly
which you can apply a silver bullet and it's going to get solved.
Yeah, so there was a lot of work which I had to do initially to make sure that we can actually categorize this well, right? And then really take up the big ones, and then and the low hanging ones first, right? And then some of the most repeating ones, and then solve for them, right? I'll tell you what we achieved, and then I'll come to how we did it, right? So we were able to go from like 1,000 plus alerts a week to 100 below 100 alerts a week.
Wow.
Right, like 95% reduction in alerts, and some of the good weeks, right, we had like less than 20 alerts over the week, right?
That's amazing,
So yeah, so it's pretty interesting what went right. I'm sure I will not be able to cover all the pieces of how we reached there, but I'll maybe pick up the top 2-3 ones, right? Yeah, it's as I mentioned, right, this is a people plus tech problem, right? The people problem was like, I mean, if once you have these many alerts, right, people don't care about it, right? I mean, it's just like, oh, it's okay if production is down also at 3 in the night, no one will, like, they will like switch off their phone, sleep, and then wake up at 6 o'clock and then fix it, right? So even that was hampering the uptime numbers, uptime metrics, and whatnot, right? So that's also very, I mean, that will happen, right? Because it's just too many things, right?
Yeah, you develop a resistance to it as an engineer. And if most alerts are useless, then the mind basically says that all the alerts are useless.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the steps that I took, right, is one very initial one, right, and it was more of a cleanup and process, right, was every alert, right, had to go to a right team. Right, so we created teams so we were using Hygiene as a product, right? It was from Atlassian. It's similar to PagerDuty, very similar products. All of these are, right? And in Hygiene, what we did, right, we created teams, very clear teams of which alert goes to which team. And then what happened because of that, right now it's team's responsibility that this is number of alerts that we are getting per week, right? So from 1,000, it became like, oh, team A has 100, team B has 120, team C has 400, right? Now, second step was like I asked each team member to start reporting this number themselves on a weekly meeting at Wednesday 10 a.m. That's what we chose, right? So we used to come to a meeting together, like all the team leads across, all the tech leads across the teams, right? And say that, oh, my team had these many alerts, right? That was the start, right? It was all manual, right? People actually had to pull reports in from Opsgenie and then show it off, right? But over time, obviously, we did automation and whatnot. I'll talk about that as well. But as soon as this started, right, people started looking at their team number, and it's become a thing like, oh, why does some of the teams have very low alerts and my team has so many alerts, right?
Yeah.
So it's also like a play of mind in terms of how do you make people think about the team's like performance and all of that, right? Performance in terms of like the services that they're managing and all of that, right? So that was one of the big thing which it feels like, I mean, oh, it's obvious, right? But I mean, yeah, that's one of the thing which actually made a very big change, right? Because now everyone started caring about it, right? The second step was we started like reporting what are the top alerts every week, right? And took like very straight action items in terms of, oh, this is the top alert, this got repeated 28 times. Take example, right? So database CPU going above 80%, right? Came like 18 times. Then you know, right? Oh, there is something gonna happen soon. It's gonna die, right? If not today, then tomorrow it's gonna die, right? So we picked some of those repeated alerts, top repeated alerts, right, and started fixing them. So I was again manually crunching that data, right? That, oh, this is the alert which came this many times, right? And then sometimes you had to actually even those alerts were not even combined automatically, right? You had to actually run a regex and then combine them, right? So there was a lot of manual work which was going into it, right? And but that helped also, right? I mean, showing up the top alerts, right? Something which came a little later once we started reducing the alerts was start tracking like all the important metrics, right? If you don't track, right, you don't improve it. Simple as that, right? I mean, so we had a dashboard where we had all the top metrics being tracked, right? Be it MTTA, MTTR, team-wise MTTA, MTTR, number of alerts, going week by week, which alerts are actually repeating, right? And like there were some 10, 12 metrics that we were tracking, right? Which 5 of them were like super important, and then some of them which were less important, right? So that also helped in terms of every team like mentioning their own data and going behind it in terms of improving it, right? And then there's a lot of automation which comes in picture in terms of getting this data from Jira, getting this data from New Relic, getting this data from Datadog, wherever the things were, right? Grafana, everywhere we pulled that data into single place, right? And started doing a lot of metrics on top of it, right?
I already have a few questions as we are
Yes.
talking about this. First is, of course, that we have to clean up the first layer of state of affairs, which was quantity of alerts, then too many alerts going to wrong recipients,
Correct.
and just doing a count level cleanup, that a team
Yep.
shouldn't receive more than a certain count of alerts, or else things are really messed up on the ground.
Correct.
That was the first level optimization, and then later you did various performance metrics ka tracking, as well as the automation of all of this data crunching.
Yeah, correct.
Let's leave the automation aside, but in the count optimization, right? Let's talk about how some specific alerts were fixed. If you're getting a database alert like 18 times a week,
Yep.
was that the wrong alert that was set up, or was that really a true alert and the database size was insufficient for the load that it was receiving?
I'll give you two examples here actually, right? So there was one alert which was coming on a read replica, and that alert used to come at every day at 12:30 a.m. in the night, right? So now you know, right? Oh, someone is actually running a cron job every day at 12:30. 12:30, 12:45, depending on when that query hits the production servers, read replica servers, right? And then this alert comes, right? So, oh no, now you have to figure out who is running that query, right? And then how do you make sure that query is optimized, right? That's step 2, right?
Wow, so interesting. So it is not a wrong alert, and it is
Yeah.
not that database is wrongly sized. It's just that the workload is so spiky
Exactly.
that is triggering the alert, but it's not actionable. I think the point to be noted here is that the alert is not actionable because you can't do anything just in time.
Exactly.
Even if someone is woken up. So
I'll take one more example, right? Around the same thing. Right? So this was on the read replica, and what was happening is one of the business analyst person, right, had a bad query, like 5 joins, 3 cross joins, and whatnot, right? Into a single query, which was getting like a very basic data, right? So there are people who ends up writing bad queries, right? And like even small help, you can actually make sure that queries are better, right? I mean, that's a very common thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's take another example where actually what is happening is evenings are the time when it's a peak in terms of orders, right?
Yes.
So what is happening is the number of since the number of users were very high, right? The number of requests were very high, and the database actually load was getting high at that time, right? And that was actually true, right? True load in terms of like users doing it, and not like some cron or some random query doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so what we had to do there, right? I mean, I'll again go in very quick this thing, and then we can go deeper if wherever we need, right? We actually had to install a new like monitoring system on database, right? Just to monitor queries, right? So we were using PGSQL, and we had I forgot the name of the tool, but it was a very interesting tool that we had put and that tool was helping us, giving us all the queries.
Are you talking about PG Analyze?
I think yes, PG Analyze. Yes, that's one of the
amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So that helped us actually realize which are the queries which are slow, right? And then we just had to pick up one by one and figure out, is that really making sense, right? See, in the end, sometimes what will happen, right? This is again one more optimization which happened, right? But then there are times which where it can happen that your database is actually small, right? Even after you have like squeezed out all of the optimizations, right? Then you actually had to go and increase it or make a replica and like move your read queries to a replica. Like some of those optimizations can also come into picture, right? But yeah, those are the 2 examples on specifically on the database side of things that we have seen. Yeah.
How easy was it to get these things sorted out? You mentioned one very interesting thing that at 12:30, let's take that example. At 12:30 in the night, there is a spike that happens. You have to trace that spike back to a batch job.
Yeah.
Did you have to do it as the engineering leader, or the engineering teams have the expertise to start from that spike, which you can observe in the database metrics, and maybe you have a query, and then trace it all the way back to the code and hopefully back to a deployment artifact? To know how difficult was it to trace it back?
So in this case, right, it wasn't a like application which was doing it. It was like a Power BI kind of a tool that we were using, right? That was doing it, right? That was into a production database directly, and that was doing it, right? You would have read some of these similar tools, right?
Yes.
So even there, right, you can write queries which repeats every 12 hours, every 24 hours, right?
Yeah, they are typically used by business users
Exactly.
to do business
Right.
analytics, and they take business
Exactly.
decisions on the top of those models.
Exactly. So that is what was happening in this scenario, right? And these are not applications running in your production environment indirectly, right? These are cloud hosted somewhere else, probably, right? And they are making this query to your production, right? So now what goes in finding these things, right, is a little like social thing where you see the query and then you know, oh, this is not a developer's query for sure, right? Or things like when you see the IP, right, from this where this SQL query is coming from, then you know, oh, this is not our infrastructure, right? It's coming from somewhere outside, right?
Yeah, it's
And
not
then
a production IP.
Exactly, right? And on your question around like, can engineers do it? I think, see, everyone can do it, right? I actually believe everyone is a 10x engineer, right? But I feel that it's basically helping them find it out, right? Giving them the right direction, right? And empowering them in making sure that they are able to take decision, right? Uh, like, so once you do that, right, you can actually get everyone to do really good job, right? And so I mean, in this reduction of these alerts that I mentioned, right, I mean 90% of the work would be done by my team and my engineers, right? I would have done 10%, right? But that 10%, right, helped them doing that 90%, right? So that's how I think is how the engineering leadership works, right? Is what I believe always.
You made a very interesting observation,
Mm-hmm.
Amit, that everybody is a 10x engineer, and it's a controversial statement. Let's get that right, because many people will say that no, there are in any ecosystem, basically, engineers is also a community. You will always have gradation of expertise.
Yes.
I agree with you that while people might not have the skills out of the box, it is just the matter of exposure and the matter of coaching. And once they see it once being done by a senior leader, a senior engineer, and they see the right approach, people have this tremendous ability to absorb the right technique and unbelievable zeal to get better at their craft. So the question is how um, um, two aspects basically. So again, like hinging on the alerting situation that you're talking about, that there are 1,000 alerts coming every week, and the same engineer is being woken up multiple times during the night. While the alerts and the alerting hygiene is bad from the system's perspective, it's also from the engineer's perspective that the situation is so bad, right? There is a human aspect to it. While you have the responsibility to keep the systems in a good shape, you can't literally, in this case, lose your sleep over it. And nobody would like it. I wouldn't like it. And I assume that would have been a great motivation for engineers to actually do the cleanup for alerts, but they would not have known, as you said, for the 10% of the long tail scenarios, where they're complicated scenarios. It wasn't easy for them to either fix the alerts or know how to just debug and make sense of what is going on in order to fix the alert. Maybe the alert was right, but the system was wrong. As in that cron jobs case, that you have to distribute the load and rewrite the cron job so that it doesn't fire such a heavy query in one shot. How difficult was it to, one, coach people, and second, instill this culture of continuous maintenance of good alerts? Because like engineers are the stakeholders here, and they are the direct beneficiaries that if the alerts are right and if they are healthy, then they will benefit directly by not getting woken up at the wrong time or not getting interrupted during the day, thereby causing a context switch in their work. So how difficult was it to coach people, and how difficult was it to maintain the culture or create that culture of continuous hygiene?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll actually give you a point before I jump into those questions, right? I think so. Engineers are lazy, but they're smarter, right? they are lazy in terms of they don't want to do extra work, but they don't also want to just wake up at 3 o'clock in the night, right? So they know that, these were like calls, these were like alerts on the phone and whatnot, right? People know that they are snoozes, right? They know advanced snoozes, right? So people actually just snooze it at times, right? And that's why your MTTR numbers goes bad, right? Simple as that, right? So engineers are smart, but they're like super lazy in picking something up by themselves, right? And which is a very good trait. I'm actually on for it, right? But what happens with that, right, is in the end, your systems, the systems which you manage, go bad, right? And that comes back to the culture part of it, where have you really defined, and this is where a lot of companies actually lack, right? Have you really defined that which systems I own as an engineer, right? Do I know that these are the 5 services which my team owns, right? And with the microservice architecture, right, what has happened, right, is that you say, oh, these 5 services are mine, but let's say a 6th service which I'm dependent on goes down, I don't care, right? That's not how it's supposed to be, right? So it's services plus a set of features in your application, right, is what you own, right? And what happens is, because of that, right, is it's your team's mandate, right, to make sure that those systems and that features are up on the production, right?
In other
I
words,
think
you own the end customer experience.
exactly
A certain
yeah.
feature, if you are offering to the customer, if that feature is down, it's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
It doesn't
Even if
matter if it's,
exactly, even if it's a service which someone else manages.
yeah, if it's your service or not,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
Exactly, right? So,
Yeah.
so this is one of the very big culture thing, right? Which I have done across wherever I worked so far, right? So startups really have this habit of keeping a lot of overlaps, right? Where people actually think that, oh, this you also own, this you also own, right? As soon as that happens, right, no one actually owns it, right? Simple as that, right? It has to be one person who's owning it, right, or one team who's owning it, and then even in that team, right, you have like one tech lead or an architect, right, who is owning in the end the whole system, right? And now how he works with his team, how the engineering managers works with his team, right, is something you leave up to him and let him decide, right? Until the metrics are all good, right? Simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So what I have done over years, right, is I have a open management kind of a style in my with my teams, right? So what I do is actually I let them do the way they want things, right? But I want the end outcome to be something which is agreed upon. Simple as that, right? So I give you an example, right? Let's say if I have set a goal saying that, oh, your MTTA or MTTR of any issue, right, has to be like, say, 5 minutes and 15 minutes, right? MTTA 5 minutes and MTTR 15 minutes, right? Then that's what I want from the team. I'm okay how you want to achieve it, right? I don't care if you want to say pick up at 3 o'clock in the night that call, right, and then fix it in 15 minutes and then sleep,
Yeah.
right? I'm okay with that, right? That's another that's a separate thing which will come into about the developer life, but if I'm okay to start with, right? If you are able to solve it that way, right? But as soon as you give these ownerships to the right people, right, and define it really, really clear, right, it actually works, right? I've seen this now 3 times, 4 times, right? That it actually works, right? And people actually start caring about if you tell them that this is your baby, right? Then they start caring about it. Simple as that. So
But
that comes.
how do you solve for the cases where, let's say, so I am owner of a feature, and my feature depends on another microservice doing their work correctly,
Yeah.
so that my feature will not break. Now,
Yeah.
that dependent microservice is down, and while I own the feature, I don't own the microservice.
Yeah.
Nor do I know the code base of that service, and that's of another team's responsibility. How should the alerts get handled? Like, should the alert get rerouted to that team?
So I again believe, right? I mean, it should be see, when there's a colossal damage where everything goes down, and everyone has to get up, right? Simple as that, right? But let's say if there's a one feature which get down because of a third party service that you have, right? Someone internally you depend on one service, right?
Sure.
Very standard problem, right? I mean, again, right? What the ownership lies in terms of the end user experience, right? So if your team is owning the end experience user, right, you need to define if that service goes down, how my product will handle it, right? So I'll give you an example, right? Let's say one of the service is doing payments, right? So it's probably not a best example. Let's say they were doing one of the payment gateways, right? right? And that is down. Then you have to switch it to a different payment gateway, right? That's your
Yeah.
job, right? Make sure
Yeah.
that if that third party service goes down, then you actually still have a product which is working, right? It gives you maybe a little bad experience to the users, because let's say everyone, like 50% people are using Paytm, but you don't see Paytm anyways because Paytm is down, right? But you removed it because your service says that, oh, this service is down, so let's remove Paytm. Let's keep only Simple as a payment gateway now, right? It's a bad experience for the user, but still is a experience which they can actually complete the flow, right, and not just crash on the app, right? So
Yeah.
things like this is how you. This is again a little more on the product side of how you think of the product workflows, right? But in the end, you need to take care of your service however you can, right? Simple as that.
Got it. So if I hear you right, you're saying there are two parts to it. First is that have a graceful default fallback.
Yes,
If
yes.
a service is down, let's say a payment gateway is down, do you have a fallback payment gateway?
Exactly.
Or if, let's say, you are giving some sort of an estimate, can you give a default estimate, which is not as accurate, but it is a number. It is, you're not crashing, and the feature remains up with a degraded version. But this is just one aspect of handling the resiliency, and this happens, of course, while you're building the systems. But the second aspect is that when the alert actually happens, and if things go down, and let's say you haven't handled this edge case, and the system, the dependent microservice actually goes down, you receive the alert because you're the owner of the feature,
Forefront of the feature, yeah.
and you'll wake up that person. You'll call that person, and they will then come up and join the incident and ensure that the microservice comes up.
Exactly. So what you can do always, and these are the tools which helps you, like Opgenie and all, right? You can actually assign the alert to someone else, right, and add a description why you have assigned to them, right? So what happens because of that? So let's say Bhavin received an alert, right, and then Bhavin realized, oh, this is an alert which actually is for Amit's team, right? So you can actually go and say assign it to Amit, right? Actually, you can assign it to team, right? So Amit, let's say, is a team B, right? Then you can assign it to team B, right? And then team will have its own routing mechanism in terms of who is available right now, who will pick the call, who will solve for it, right?
On call operations.
Exactly, right. So when you assign it to team B, you can say that, oh, this my service is down, but like, oh, there's a dependent service which your team owns. Please look into this, right? What should also happen, right, is if the team B service is down, right, they should have already got an alert, right? So you don't have to really wait for them to. You have to assign to them and do it, right? Because then they would have already should be seeing it, right? Ideally, right? Now that comes down to a point which actually we never touched upon, right? Is your alert set up well, right? So do you have alerting? So something which I have seen, and this is a very continuous process, right? Is keep evaluating if your processes, if your alerts are set well, right? Because 80% alert on a application on Node.js is fine, while on a Golang, right, it's had to be at 10% CPU, right? So how do you make sure that, I mean, these are set correctly across all the different systems, right? That's a very big task, and I really feel that there are solutions to it, but I mean, it's right now a lot of laborious process, a manual process, right, where you have to download reports in terms of which alerts you have, which services you have, do you have a mapping of those, are all the basic alerts covered, are there specific service-based alerts that you need to keep, right? These is very laborious task right now, and what happens is, right, is you always have, say, you start with, say, 50% missing alerts, and then you have like 20% missing alerts in your system, and you have to live with that, right? Because you'll never be it's very, very hard to basically go to a level where you have all the alerts correctly set up in the system, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. The best I've seen is that on a monthly or a quarterly cadence, people will download or view all the alerts, which by itself is a hard activity, because some of the alerts are in your cloud, some of the alerts are in NRQL or New Relic, and some of them are in Grafana. So the alert themselves are in various systems. And the best I have seen is that some particular on-call every month or every quarter will go through all the alerts and will review all the thresholds. And it's such a manual activity that you don't manage to cover all the alerts, and then you don't manage to find all those nuances, which makes an alert unhealthy.
I think one of the things that you just mentioned, Bhavan, right, is on-call engineer, right? I actually hate that term, right? I say everyone in a team has to be on call, right? It has to be a team activity, and on call is, I mean, you always have what to say, alert priority. It goes to one person, second person. You can say first person is on call, but
Yeah,
if you build systems which are good, right, you don't need to be on call, right? You just have to make sure that this alert comes. You have a playbook. This is how you solve. Anyone can in the team can pick it up and do it, right?
correct.
That's culture plus like strong engineering which goes into it. But yeah, that takes time. Yeah.
When you say the whole team has to be on call, but there will be the first responder always.
There's always a alerting mechanism. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. You also made a very interesting observation, and I will probably talk about that and close the conversation. Um, that engineers are lazy,
Yes.
and uh, there is actually some value in being lazy. You should be hardworking. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should be lazy, but there is a nuance to it. While you should be hardworking, you should be more smart working, and there is some virtue in being lazy, because that laziness will show you if you are working in the wrong direction. And yeah, you can work in the wrong direction and apply tremendous force to reach your destination, but that's of no value, because the solution is like not fully optimal, and you're not doing the best service to your future self.
Yeah.
Is this concept understood well, especially in Indian context, where we are seen to be hard workers, and Indian mentality is that people will gravitate towards working hard, and they almost see it as a virtue that hey, I'm working 12 hours a day and 14 hours a day. And
Yeah.
how have you seen that play out? Is that, I'm pretty sure it's not a healthy thing to
Yeah.
work long hours.
Couple of points here, right? So one is, so I have worked with startups, right? And what I've seen with startups, right? No one cares about time, right? I mean, people care about what they're doing, right? Are they learning enough? Are they doing what they're supposed to do, right? In terms of, are they achieving in terms of what their sprint goals are, what their quarterly goals are, or whatever, right? So that's what matters in the end, right? No one cares about like, oh, you are putting in 10 hours, you're putting in 12 hours, right? I have this conversation with my team multiple times, right? I don't care if you are doing this in the night or you're doing this in the 1 hour time in the office, right? You have to do this, right? Because you agreed that you will be doing this, right, in this time, right? Now I don't care about like if you don't come to office. I don't care about if you what do you say come to office for 3 hours a day, right? There are few, obviously there are few what do you say things that we want everyone to do, like for example be in stand up, be in sprint planning and whatnot, right? But otherwise, right, I don't really care about how you do getting your things done, right? I know there are corporates out there, and I have luckily not worked with any of them, right, where people have to do check-in time, check-out time, 12 hours a day or whatever, right? I don't really know also how much hours, right? But see, what has also, I mean, I'm saying this, right, but on the other side, right, I've also told people, right, that if you're, if you're not like inherently have done this over years, right, if you're not done engineering over years, right, you have to do hard work and start it, right? And that's what I tell all the freshers also, right? I mean, I know there is people who are like really, really smart in terms of getting things fast, right? But they're not always, right? There are a lot of people who actually have to do those hard work, that grunt work multiple times, right? To get to where some of the good engineers reach in 4 5 years, right?
Yeah,
So it's basically to understand the person, right? There are people who are like really really good from day one, right? And there are people who actually need to do hard work, right? So I have taken both the approaches with different kind of people, where I've told them, oh, you actually spend 2 more hours, please, right, this week or today, right, and actually do this one more time, right, so that you get better at this, right? But then the other people, then I know that, oh, he or she just can do it like very quickly, right? Then I can actually move them really fast in terms of getting to a 10x engineer faster, right? So those that is your engineering management style in terms of understanding the right people, right? What are their strengths, right? And then going behind in them in the right direction, helping them in the right direction in terms of becoming a better engineer, right? So that is no single answer to it, no single bullet to it, right? but you really have to understand person by person and work with them, right? So and that is also very, very different in terms of how you go from a senior engineer one to a lead engineer, or a lead engineer to an engineering manager, or engineering manager to a senior engineering manager, right? So for all of this, right, is very, very different process, right? And a good managers working with you, right, can help you like break those boundaries, break those shackles, like of how do you move from a tech lead to an engineering manager, right? It's a very big jump in terms of going from non-management to a management and engineering, right? So a good manager can help you with all of that, right? So I think one of the things which I think you mentioned earlier, right, is having a good peer set, right, is very, very important,
Yeah.
right? Having like really smart people around. Never, I mean, this is a very common thing, right? Never be a smartest person in the room, right? Simple as that. Never be, right? If you are there, just leave, right? Simple as that, right? So that you really need to understand, right? Put your what do you say basics right, and then move forward right from there. I think initial years are very, very important in terms of learning, hardworking, both, right? And then it's always smart work over the years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation.
Yep. Thank you,
Cool.
Bhavin.
Thank you.
If you have listened till here, I hope you have learned something new from experiences of Amit. Do check out today's sponsor 10x Eng. They are building a product to make your alert management streamlined. If you have any feedback, please comment or email us at hello@pakkanimbu.com. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.